Good evening. This is the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, April 15th, 2025, 5:01 PM. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do we have an approval of tonight's agenda, please?
Motion to approve.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. DeCosta to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brace? Aye. Mr. DeCosta?
Aye.
And Mr. Sherlin?
Aye.
For the record, Mr. Sherlin and Mr. DeCosta are here via Zoom tonight. Approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the draft minutes of April 1st, 2025? Do we have any revisions or a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve both as is.
April 1st and February 18th.
Correct.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is made to approve the draft minutes of April 1st and February 18th. All in favor, Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brace? Aye. Mr. DeCosta?
Aye.
Sherlin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Do we have anything from the Marine Department?
She's not here.
Natural Resources Department, please. Tara or Jeff or both?
We are still going through some of the bushel data. It was, reported as over 10,000 in the media this week. I was going through some of the trip reports today and we're missing a lot of, some March data and some of the April data. And, so I sent out an email to the permit holders just to get an idea. I mean, I don't think the amount's gonna change that much. But I'm interested in some of the other details of days fished and the amount of activity going on. So hopefully we'll have more of a final number at the next meeting, but I think you can count on, just over 10,000 probably for the season. We've been busy working on the eelgrass management plan. We meet every Wednesday to go over that. Again, the deadline is July 1st, and we're hoping to have a draft by the end of May for everyone to review and comment on. Today was the deadline for the Great Harbor Yacht Club grant funding cycle. We submitted one from the hatchery for some additional educational outreach materials related to eelgrass. We didn't submit anything related to eelgrass research or equipment because we're waiting for this plan to be finalized and everything to be prioritized, but we did think that we could go ahead and start educating people on the importance of eelgrass. So we submitted some stuff for some signage and stuff to bring into the schools and at festivals and that sort of thing. We start spawning on the 28th of this month, and let's see what else. We did some educational outreach over the weekend at Scalapalooza. We did some, what was it called? What's your scallop IQ is what it was. And so you had to classify scallops, and I'm proud to say that 2 SHAP members got 100%. They were commercial fishermen, so they were experts, but it did highlight the need that we have to educate people on how to recognize a seed from an adult scallop, because a lot of people had no idea. So that's something that we can work on. Also last week, the hatchery staff attended a bird deterrent meeting on Zoom that was held over on the Cape. And that's important for the aquaculture industry and also for us, because we do have oyster cages and gear out in the water that is subject to bird deterrent. So there were a lot of scientists there and people from the DMF. And so it was interesting to get some updates on recommendations for this season. I'm sure Jeff and Joe will be talking about that at the growers meeting that they're going to host in a few weeks.
April 29th.
Yep. And that's all I have. So Jeff, if you want to add anything to it, feel free.
Well, I was just gonna say, I believe one of those shed members that got 100 also won the opening contest,
Yep, yep.
so. But, so congratulations to Bob. But, I'd say we also are working on, a yacht club grant application. I have to confirm that it went in, Leah, our resiliency coordinator who was working on it, was remote today. To put in a, backup tide gauge and weather station at the hatchery. That will provide us real-time information. We've kind of heard, from some colleagues at NOAA that there's a little bit of uncertainty running around about the ongoing maintenance of the existing tide gauging system at the Steamship Authority. So we are actively pursuing, an on-island backup for that system, just to be sure that we always have that information in place. It's really valuable for us. And for solving, to do, we're also looking at putting in an additional tide gauge, elsewhere in the harbor, just for kind of comparative purposes. But to have that main one available either through the town website, or hosted somewhere else where people can get that information from both those stations 24/7, 365, just to make sure that if that happens and NOAA doesn't continue to maintain that we have something on island that provides us the same quality of data for folks to have. Other than that, I was gonna touch on the harbor plan, but it's later on the agenda. So I'll hold off, but, other than that, I think that's it.
Board members, questions or comments, natural resources report? Tara, if I may, yes, Peter?
I was thinking if they do Palooza next year, that maybe we should, as a board, all be there with name tags, saying that we're on the board. Maybe people will have questions, maybe it's a good way to get people to actually get on the board.
Free beer for SHAB members.
No, I wasn't.
I'll second that.
Start your writing campaign.
All right, Dan,
Andy, I think that's a good idea. I mean, a lot of us were there anyways, but it's,
yeah,
if you were a tag, at least people might approach you.
I'd have no problem with that. I think, the venue can be rather loud to have a serious conversation. At Oyster Fest last year, I was given a table as a NSA board member with some, it was just a little stand-up table, but it was centrally located. And basically, I was there to answer questions, explain what the NSA does, and honestly, nobody approached me. But it's nice, I think, to have the exposure just in case. More importantly, the education and outreach program, which Scott and I did do a presentation for what grade, Scott? Fifth grade
It was 6th through 8th.
at the new
new
school. And we had Scott really put it all together, and it was a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I believe Scott enjoyed it. Scott, I think you informed me that you have been adding to what could revise that presentation. I felt that it needed a little more vigor with color, with some videos showing some certain things about, like, let's get a quick video of a storm drain, sending some dark water with debris in it into the harbor, and so something that really sticks into the mind of kids. And because this was mentioned at last Tuesday, there was an NSA meeting, and they were talking more about getting young kids, especially our diverse population here, more familiar with what is in the harbor, what's available to them in the harbor, for edible foods, foraging, and I thought to myself, along with that type of education, we need to educate about the environment and why this stuff is still there, what the dangers are to these wonderful items that are available to us in the harbor and how fragile they are, from the sources of pollution. And whether it be fertilizer or, storm water runoff. So if you're working on something on your end, Tara, I think as long as Scott and I are here, we'd probably be glad to be involved, share the information we have. And it seems as though the NSA would also be more than willing to be involved and also supporting monetarily with this. So I don't think any of us should ever forget or be bashful to realize that there could be money available from the NSA for a project like this. And I think we all can agree that it's very important to be reaching out. I think we need to get into every school and every classroom on the island.
I definitely agree. Right now I have about 75 or 80 photographs. And what I've done is I've taken all the good things you can see on the island, from fishing to surfing, having a good time, to then all of a sudden look at the fertilizer going down. Look at the drains and stuff like running into the drains. I have pictures of fertilizer sitting there because it was overspray, and it's right at the drain, right going down into like Baird's Landing. And it's like everything was blue against the black pavement, so it jumps right out of you. Where's it going? Right in Mattocket Harbor. But you'll see it in town too, and everybody's drains. I mean, they're power washing the houses, they're painting the stuff. And I've got pictures down on India Street of stuff getting power washed into the drains, and we know where that's going too.
I caught a guy coming up York Street one day, stopped at the stop sign, looked left down Orange Street, and there was a guy pouring a bucket of paint into the drain. I jumped out of my truck, laid into the guy. They didn't speak English, but
This is
basically said it was latex paint, like that made it any better.
simply a testament that the education we need to get out there and forth. So thank you, Tara, for working on that. And of course,
Got a couple
keep
more
us.
things. So I think we need readable material for age group appropriate, because if you're talking to high school kids, they're at one level, even multilingual. And then if you go down to the other age groups, you gotta figure how you tone it down. That's why a lot of the pictures and visualization will keep, I think, kids engaged. The more you put up on the good old adult PowerPoint stuff with a still picture in the corner, I think you lose kids. We were lucky to keep those kids engaged at that school.
Mhm.
But I think if we go into the rest of the Nantucket public school system, that we have to make modifications that'll engage them.
Well, and also Peter reminded me when we were making the agenda that all of this is really covered in the blue book. And we still have an entire box unopened.
I have
with
a
the
half
blue
box.
book, and
Goes back from you guys.
we need to reintroduce them in the right hands. Will do, Peter, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll tell you,
Okay.
just make a plug for that. So if there's anybody not involved in our group watching, we should make an effort to print enough of them so they can go in every single person's postal box, whether it's at your house or at the post office, and so that all the realtors can have them and give them to new home buyers. And thank God for the land council. They paid for 2,500 of them, but that's all they can afford. So
Okay, anything else
Mr.
on that?
Chairman.
Welcome, Mr. Franzuto. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want you to know that numerous places within the harbor plan update that the education component has been listed in there, and SHAB efforts have been recorded, and that they want us to continue doing what we're doing. So I just want you to know that it's been memorialized in the plan update.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? A comment, question pertaining to natural resources report? Any public comment at this point? old business amendments to town shellfish regulations. I think everybody was emailed the draft.
If I may, so I sent out to everyone, we talked about a clean version with all of it, because it got kind of hairy, so we sent that around with the change summary for everyone to review. So obviously, when it goes online, that it'll look a little bit different, because they'll format it to the, how the website works, but hopefully this is easy to do.
So is that the final draft of them, or?
Yes. You want
Sure. Um. We've talked about this, you and I have, and
Wait, hold on.
Dan,
Sorry, Dan.
well, Dan is here to talk about
Okay.
conch. He wants to get going in conking, and he's concerned about. It's better he explains it than I, but as far as you know, when maybe we should talk about the regulations before we get Dan into the conversation. Is there any, if, has everybody reviewed it? I think Jeff and Tara have really spelled it out well. We've gone over this tremendously here over weeks and weeks, and there's been wonderful input from the board. I couldn't be more proud of the board for how we've really picked this apart with a fine tooth comb, and so I trust from here on in that staff, Tara and Jeff, will have this managed properly and presented to the select board. If there's anything else that the board wishes to add to or revise, now's the time to do that. We got a hand up from Mr. Sherlin. Thank you.
Yes, I believe at one of the meetings we had discussed green crab regulations and taking them out of the town shellfish regulations. Did we not?
We did.
Okay, isn't it still in the regulations according to the summary here?
I think it got left in because you do require an LOA. I know that we had talked about taking out blue crabs. But for some reason, the green crab got left in. JC's on too, if he wants to comment on that.
Can we still remove that? I mean, does the town have jurisdiction over crabs?
No, so right now, the only mention of green crab is that it just references that a letter of authorization from the DMF must be obtained for harvesting green crabs.
Okay, that's the only thing that says, okay.
Yeah, and that a copy has to be provided to the local constable, just to have on file, so when someone calls, we know it's the right person, so, but that's it, there's no limits or timing listed, it's specifically a reference to needing that state letter of authorization.
And is that a state requirement?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not adding to that at all on the town level? No.
Is that a state requirement for commercial green crab fishing or just in general? Like if somebody's catching green crabs with one pot for bait, do they really need to go to the state to get a letter of authorization? I mean, I know guys over here in the Cape that do it all the time and they don't have a letter, and the wardens over here don't say anything to them. I mean, they're setting one trap, they're getting a half a bucket of crabs over the course of a week, and then that's it. It seems to me like we're overthinking this. I mean, if somebody's setting 50 traps for green crabs, I can see the reason to get a letter, but for some kid that's setting a trap off the end of Strait Wharf or North Wharf to catch 20 or 30 crabs for bait, I mean, I don't know. I guess sometimes I think we overthink this stuff.
a good point.
I mean, we can remove that box and just end the worry about it. Not a big problem.
The LOA is a state regulation and it is required and you do have to have it. You can harvest green crabs with, I think it's a 3-sided trap like you would with blue crabs, as long as you're maintaining it. You could use a dip net to get green crabs. You could use a hook to get green crabs. Just if you're going to use a pot, you have to have an LOA from the state, and they also want the there's a form that you have to fill out to record what's in the pot, and that's what they want. And I think if you did the reporting, it's good, because if you're not seeing terrapin turtles, which is what banned traps, you might be able to say, well, for 3 years or what have you, we haven't caught any terrapin turtles. Maybe we exclude Nantucket from this regulation so that you can use 6-sided traps.
Has anybody in Nantucket ever seen a terrapin turtle?
I don't even know what it looks like,
On the
Jimmy.
island.
Thank
Not
you.
that I'm aware of.
I've seen him on a dead cover of an album.
So my question is this,
That's
it's
where
a
I'm
state
going.
it's a state regulation to have this permit. Why do we have to enforce it as a town? Let the game warden enforce it. If he wants to enforce some kid at the end of North Wharf with one trap catching some green crabs for bait for tog, that's his prerogative. Why do we have to do it as a town? The other towns over here on the Cape, their local constables don't enforce the green crab regulations on the locals over here. Why is it that we have to do it when no one else does?
Mr. Chairman,
Gonna start with Mr. Brace, then Mr. Franzuto.
I agree with Bobby. And as a person who's been on this board for a long time, for years, we've talked about how we can deal with the green crabs. Now, all of a sudden, we're worried about.
Catching them.
insurance.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Franzuto?
yeah, I agree with Bobby. The only, I think that if we have a conscientious effort of wanting to trap green crabs for Scott Anderson's benefit for his programs that he's working on, or for Toscana to use in fertilizer, then that person should get a LOA from the state, and is gonna be a major effort to trap green crabs. However, if you want to just trap a bucket full of green crabs to use for bait, like Bob's talking about, let's not get in that business.
Wait a minute. JC? Is there a possibility that, you can, what's the right word for this, just separate the two? A kid, searching for some bait versus, somebody that's got 6 to 10 or more traps out there for a larger reason. What your discretion on that, JC? How would you ultimately determine your discretion?
That would have to be something that was taken up with the state, but they're very adamant about 6-sided pots not being in use and having an LOA for green crabs. And the LOA is free. You just need to apply for it. I've yet to find anybody that has been rejected applying for an LOA. But that's something that you would have to take up with the Division of Marine Fisheries. And most people who apply for the LOA is for bait, and it's free. Just you have to give them some reporting on what's in the pot as you're hauling the pot and pulling what's out of it.
Okay, I'm not quite sure if that answers my question, but, and I suppose my question, I'm asking you to, if you're willing to, overlook part of this regulation, and I know that's probably, not correct to do. There's several board members here that are asking the same thing, and that's why I'm asking it directly to you. Certainly appreciate what you do, and don't want to dictate what you do. That is up to you to follow the law that you're authorized to do. So can you answer Jim's question about a terrapin turtle? Are you aware of any existing here in the harbor, JC?
I have not seen a terrapin turtle in this harbor, no.
Tara, did you want to add to that?
We asked this question probably a year ago, and I asked Danielle Odell, who like studies turtles, and she said that there hasn't been one here for decades. And it's questionable whether there was ever one to begin with, and that it was just a blanket regulation imposed over everyone. She said it'd be very hard for a terrapin to, they are around saltwater, but they're not in saltwater, is my understanding.
They'd have a hard time
There's a
getting-
little bit of overlap between their territory.
All right, thank you.
Good. I had something to the
Yeah.
quickly too. So just kind of looking at the chart and the way it's listed, I think the intent in the box there, it's kind of similar to what the other shellfish with like limpets and blood arcs and sea clamps. Is it's more of an educational piece that if there's someone who's interested in collecting green crabs, it's telling them they need to get it from the state, not that we're actively, setting limits or time you can harvest. It's more of it, if you're looking into harvesting it, contact the DMF, get a letter of authorization. We're only asking for a copy as a courtesy. So if we come across pots or materials or something that's there, we know who has one, but it's not something that we're, doing the EPO's job. It's just more of an informational piece to say, you want to trap them, you need to get this, and then it's up to you, right? It's more an informative piece.
All right. Before I go to Mr. Pronk, okay, I need to entertain the board. Mr. DeCosta?
I don't have the updated regs in front of me. I'm sorry. I read the email but I don't have it here. Jeff, can you answer the question for me? Do you need a permit to set an eel trap?
The town doesn't regulate eels. So
And does the state require it for an eel
I
trap?
believe you do for the state,
Yes.
yes. Yes, for the state, I believe you do.
For one eel trap or one minnow trap, you need a permit?
I mean, I'm not an interpreter of the state regs for that, I would be guessing. But
I'll have to look.
Oh,
There's
can
a lot
find-
of guys, I know like. A lot of the guys that I know that get green crabs don't use a crab trap. They use an eel trap. And the opening on the eel trap is only like 2 inches by 2 inches, because they don't want the big crabs. And there's no way a terrapin turtle's getting into a 2 inch by 2 inch trap. And if somebody sets an eel trap to catch eels for bass bait, are we gonna require to see I'm just asking because I know I'm gonna get this question from kids that fish a lot, like, do I need to get a permit for this and this and this? And, they don't wanna break the law, but they also wanna be able to catch bait when they wanna go fishing without having to go pay $2.50 for an eel, or, you can't even buy crabs on Nantucket, so they're just trying to, catch bait so they can go catch fish, and I'd rather have them catching fish and doing things they shouldn't be doing, so I'm just trying to get some clarification so I can give them clarification.
Mr. Brace?
So when you got your recreational license, you used to get a slip of paper that you had to sign, and it showed you all the things that you could take with a recreational license. And then there was a map on the back of Nantucket, on the back, that showed Nantucket and the places you get those things. And one of the things
Shellfish.
that your recreational license allowed you to take was eels.
And to
Are you
Peter's point, there was no reference to green crabs.
No,
Thank you, Dave.
I remember we could always get eels. I just didn't know if back then we used to get them with dip nets. I don't know if you can get them with, or you could gig them through the ice when we had ice, but I didn't know if there was a separate requirement for a pot to catch eels. That was the question that I had. But I'll dig into it with the state and I'll get back to you guys at the next meeting and let you all know. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, something else?
Yeah, it goes along with what I said about the green crabs. If somebody's gonna, like Glenn Edwards, rest his soul, one of the greatest watermen I've ever known. He used to make a living catching eels, but he had a license to do it from the state.
right.
So again, it goes back to what I said about the green crabs. If you're doing it commercially, you're trying to make money on it, or you're doing it for whatever reason, then I believe you go through the process. But otherwise, let's let these people get eels or green crabs for bait without beating them up, just so they can go catch some fish.
You don't need a permit for pots for eels.
You don't? Okay. Thank you,
No.
JC.
You're welcome.
All right, and you don't need a permit.
Recreational or commercially?
I don't think there is a commercial anymore for eels, and I know for recreational you do not need a permit.
Okay.
I think Dan actually has a new permit.
I have,
Go ahead, Dan.
I get-
Mr. Prawn.
I get a LOA from the state every year for a green crab for commercial harvest, because I catch them now for conch bait. It allows you 50 traps. Each buoy has to say your permit number and, you have to write GC on it for green crab, and then your permit number. A commercial license enables you 50 traps. I also have an American eel license from the state. Because a few years ago, I set traps in a couple of the ponds and was gonna do something with them, but couldn't get a market. But in order for me to legally do it, I had to get a state license. But that, like Dave said, that's commercially harvested. But I said to Jeff, and somebody might remember this. Did the old buttons used to say eel on them, the skull buttons that you get? Like, why couldn't we, with the button say, all right, if you buy a button, not only does it give you, your one basket a week of scallops, why couldn't we just, not that the town should have a license for the green crabs, because I don't know, a commercial application, yes, I would say so, but maybe on the button, put something on there about green crab, like a multi-purpose button, not only for scallops and clams, but it would also cover a kid running down the end of the town pier and hucking an eel pot off the end of the dock. Or a green crab trap or something along those lines, just to cover their rear end. If they didn't have an actual commercial permit, and I agree with you, you're gonna go set a couple so you can go catch them to tog. I don't think you should have a commercial permit for it either, but there is a state license for American eel. I don't know how it's dictated how you catch them, if it's a trap or a weir or something like that. But I think the button is a pretty simple thing.
It says in the law that you need a permit if you intend to sell,
Yes.
but recreational fishing, you need a saltwater that's covered under the saltwater fishing permit.
Again, we don't regulate eels locally. That's a total state thing, and I do agree. I believe that's covered by your recreational saltwater fishing permit that covers all recreational saltwater
Perfect.
fishing.
No sense to the one.
All right,
So basically, if you have a saltwater license, you should be able to legally go huck a crab pot off the end of the dock.
I think so.
anything else from the board on the amendments to the town shellfish regulations? Dan, I'm gonna give you a moment to explain what you are here for. in particular to the conch, your conch fishery and season, please?
Well, we started talking about the conch end of this last summer, the regulations. And Matt and I were here talking about it with everybody, and we had decided that instead of 30 traps per state license holder, it would be 60. Because the old way it's written is, we'd each get 30 traps, and if one guy wasn't fishing, you could either lease them or loan them. So one guy could fish 60, and we had hammered all that out last year, so I had thought. And conch season starts today, is day one. Legally, we can't set any kind of trap, green crab, conch, or anything in the harbor, or about to 2 miles north of the harbor because of the northern right whale closure. Not setting traps in the harbor is ridiculous, but that's a different fight. So legally, we can't set gear in the harbor till May 1st. But come May 1st, I would like to set 60 traps in the harbor, because we've hammered out the regulations. I just don't know. I've been told that they haven't been finalized, and we got a copy of them now, but by the time this goes through the public comment period and then the board of select period, it's gonna be July, and the season's gonna be halfway over. Now, right now, the current regulations dictate that if the other two current conch permit holders on the island buy their town permit, get issued their 30 tags, and want to transfer their 30 tags to me, they have to go down and sign off on the paperwork, which is fine. But one of the reasons we hammered out these new regulations were so you didn't have to do that, because there's really only 2 of us fishing, and Matt's busy with his oyster farm, so there's really only 1 of us fishing. And nobody's fished the harbor in several years now, and I think there's gotta be some way we can push this through to get it approved. Otherwise, I don't wanna sound like an ass, but, you know, I'm counting on setting 60 traps in the harbor this year to make my season. If I can only set 30, that's half my paycheck. Nobody wants half their paycheck right now, and like I said, we were in this room last summer going over all this, and I thought we had hammered it all out. Here it is, opening day, and we're still kicking the can around. I don't know what has to be done, but my paycheck is riding on this immensely. I can't express that to you guys more than just, let's get it done. I don't know how, but
Well, Dan, with all due respect, to everybody that's been working on this.
oh, I know
As-
everybody's been working around
As
the
far,
clock
as
on
far
it.
as the entire regulations go, it has, the can hasn't been kicked, it's been actually, well played and well scrutinized, but, as far as what you wanna do in
Timelines.
particular. And it seems as though you would like to try to somehow pull out, separate the conch thing and try to get it before the board. Before
That's
the
what I
rest of it goes in.
I
I'm
don't know
not
if
sure
that's
about the
even possible.
timing.
Yeah, I don't know. if it's
Tara, do
possible,
you
but-
know when this is gonna end up being before the board, or Jeff?
To defer to Jeff for the timeline.
I don't.
I,
I mean, once we get this to them, I mean, they'll have their review time and scheduling for it.
But it'll be June,
I mean, I think,
maybe July.
I think Dan's timeline for having it official by the start of July is probably pretty close. But I think, you know, while we're out here, we can certainly see if there's a way to,
I mean, we can
I
go
don't
back to the old ways, you know.
Mr.
getting
Jim,
Proper paperwork, you know, I've already spoken to Jimmy Ellis and he said it's doable, you know, but. We shouldn't have to do that if the regulations have been approved. And I didn't mean kicking the can with all the shellfish regulations. I'm just saying this one in particular, and I know it's done and drawn up and everything, but. To me, it's like, there's a lot riding on this for my business and the guys that work for me and the people that buy, you know, it's not just me that this is gonna affect, you know.
Mr. Jim,
Mr. Franzuto,
my suggestion would be that, you know, Dan, get Matt and Ellis to do it the old way, and we'll stick with a 1 July timeline. But that, I think if there's a mechanism right now to get those additional traps for you for the beginning of the season, let's do that.
So if Jimmy comes down to the office here and signs the paperwork, because
That's
I don't
that's
know the
exactly right.
skeleton for deposits, but, you know, the last time this went down, it cost me 3 years and a lot of money because of the tag issue. I just want to make sure if Jimmy Ellis comes down here with all the proper paperwork and signs the paperwork, that I'm gonna actually get handed 60 tags. Should have been today, because according to these regulations and the old ones, April 15th it starts. I'm not looking for the tags today, obviously, but May 1st. I hope there's 60 tags to be handed to me, because I don't wanna go through what we went through last 4 years
Well,
ago.
if that's the current regulation, then pick Jimmy Ellis up at his house, buy him a cup of coffee, drive him down there, and get him to give you whoever issues those tags to give them to you. If that's the current regulation, let's
Right.
follow
I
that.
just wanna clarify that that is the other option, that if this doesn't get through, and it doesn't look like it's gonna get through, if Jimmy comes walking through that door in the next few days and signs the paperwork,
Well,
you
that's
go
a
to
question.
Geronimo's to get the tags made again, or I got the
That's a-
old one, use those.
That's a question for the Director of Natural Resources, Jeff.
No, I mean, those regulations are still in place.
All right.
So they're still valid, so.
All right,
So-
I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So Jim Ellis's tags can be transferred to Dan Pronk.
If Jimmy comes down with a copy of his current state permit and whatever other proper documentation you guys need, because I want to make this easy as possible for Jimmy, you know, and everybody else. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
he can
So
see-
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Under the current regulation, can Matt also transfer his numbers to Dan?
I believe he could, but to be honest with you, I don't want to fish 90 traps in the harbor. We had come up with 60, Matt and I had come up with 60 as a comfortable number. Like, if I were to fish 60 and Matt were to fish 60, we'd run through them quicker, you know, with 120 traps going, but right now it looks like I'm the only one gonna go, and if I fish 90 traps, I would, with 60 traps, I feel is, if I set 60 traps in the harbor in the springtime, I'll get a good run of conchs in the spring. When the water gets warmer, we get real busy traffic in the harbor, take them out, put them outside. And then in the fall, when the water cools down and the boat traffic lightens up, bring them back up in the fall and have
Okay,
at
well,
'em in
what,
the fall. But
I
with
guess-
60, I think
I
that's
guess
a good number. 90, I think.
all right, I guess a better way to ask that question is, can it either be Matt or Ellis's traps tags to you? So you have the flexibility of asking Matt or Ellis to transfer theirs, is what I'm
I
asking.
believe so, that's how it is.
Okay,
Yes.
well
All
then,
tags are transferable by the current regulations.
I
All
believe
right.
legally, like, with the proper
Perfect. So-
documentation, I could get all 120, but
no, I'm not saying 100, I'm saying you've got the flexibility of contacting those two guys to get them in the office in the next week and work it out. That's all I'm saying.
Right, that's basically why I came here, was just to get an answer to, I pretty much knew we weren't gonna get the new regulations through in time, but, you know, JC and I spoke about this a week or so ago, and he said, yep, the old regulations still are valid if you get a signature from one of those two. But Dave, I just wanted to come here and hear it from everybody and actually have it on record that I got in a lot of trouble a few years ago. We don't need to
Well,
get into that. And I
we're-
just wanna make sure that that doesn't happen again.
All
I
right,
wanna make sure
we're trying to
the
move,
tag in my hand.
we're trying to move the ball for you, so.
I know, and I appreciate it.
We can,
As long as we can, I'm happy with this.
I'll even draw up the paperwork for it.
Perfect. I'll deliver Jimmy tomorrow.
Well, maybe give me a day.
I'm out of here. I'm getting on the boat tonight.
But,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace.
so Dan, are you comfortable that either of those guys will.
I've spoken to Jimmy about it, and Jimmy has assured me that he'd be willing to, and Tara said, you know, talk to Matt, but like I said. Either one of them, I wouldn't want 90 tags because like I said, I think you'd get them, but you'd get them quicker. I'd rather have it like a gobstopper. You know, let's just get the whole season out of it instead of getting it in one quick rush. So,
If you wanted more, you can always ask the other guy that.
well, that's true too, but you know,
Sarah,
This isn't 100% related, but can we get a copy of your landings that you get? Because the
sure.
past 6 years,
Yeah.
we've been tracking we've been surveying the conch in the harbor, and that would be a helpful piece of
We could
info.
we could
Thank you.
try to track them too.
Perfect.
I'm gonna try to track them in the harbor this year. I'm gonna paint some of them and see if I can catch them.
Oh, that'd be cool,
Yeah,
definitely.
I know some people that do it other places, but
That'd be interesting to know
Yeah.
how much they're traveling around.
I can't help but to wonder about, you know, in comparison to oyster farming, if you were to be non-active for so long, it's frowned upon, if not, almost illegal, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, Mr. Ellis, curious if he even has a boat here now.
Oh, he has a boat still.
Traps,
he has a boat in his driveway. I don't know if he plans on fishing, but he still currently holds a Massachusetts conch operator license. And until he can sit on that license for 10 years and then decide in 10 years he wants to go fishing again. If you don't have 4 consecutive years of 5,000 pounds landed, you can't transfer your license, but it's still active to the person holding it. Like if I were to sell my permit, I'd have to go, or Matt, you'd have to get 4 years in a row of at least 5,000 pounds. And Jimmy hasn't landed that, I haven't landed it, Matt hasn't landed it. I didn't land mine because my permit was sanctioned, but after 4 years, you can transfer that permit. But if you don't put landings on it and you continue to renew your permit every year and get your trap tags, you can hold that permit as long as you die. So.
okay, and that's a state.
State permit, and to have the town permit, you have to have a state permit to qualify to get the town permit to
Okay.
trap them.
Okay.
It's similar to,
Dave,
yeah.
Kent? All good, Dave? All right.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? I think we've exhausted the conch discussion.
I'm good.
We're good. The shellfish regulations. Anything else from the board?
So Andy, do we now just then we're good and we say, we approve, we have to take a vote on the regulations as they exist now and to push them along to the next stage?
And
If I said, it'd be really great if you did.
yeah, basically what we're looking for is a motion to approve revisions to shellfish regulations and give that recommendation to the select board
And request the scheduling of a public hearing.
Bob,
and request the scheduling of a public hearing. Bob,
Am I gonna get myself in trouble if I vote for this? Because these regulations do affect me financially. Jimmy and I both, for that matter. So, you know, I just want to make sure.
I would
I know
say,
the last conversation we had, I could be part of the discussion, but I should refrain from the vote. So if I gotta refrain from the vote and Jimmy has to refrain from the vote, you still have enough of a quorum to vote on this?
we do,
yes,
yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Bob. That complaint to me, unfortunately, is very unfortunate. And I hope it's not discouraging to you continuing to sit on the board. And the same with Jim.
No, I'm just not gonna vote. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Mr. Franzuto,
yeah, I make a motion that we accept the regulations as amended and forward it to the selectmen for approval.
I'll second that.
adding to that, requesting this to be held in public hearing, is that it?
They'll schedule one.
Okay, so that, motion's made by Mr. Franzuto, seconded by Mr. Anderson. Any more discussion? All in favor, Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Brace.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mr. DeCosta and Mr. Sherlin are abstaining from this vote. Thank you
Well,
very much.
I have a comment about that.
Yes, please, Mr. Franzuto.
And maybe it's a procedural thing, and Bobby, you're smarter than I am about meetings and all that stuff. I think that it should be when the letter or however natural resources or however this gets submitted to the selectmen for future consideration, it should be noted that the vote was unanimous. And that Mr. DeCosta and Mr. Sherlin recused themselves because of I think it just should be documented that the vote was unanimous and the reason why the other two members didn't vote.
We'll make that abundantly clear. I'll send a draft around for everyone to look at in advance.
I just want to present a very strong united front from this board and also to support our commercial our commercial members.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace.
and going forward, I think, well, I don't think, I know, we need to find out for sure.
Yep.
If fishermen have to abstain from voting on things that they got on the board for. We need fishermen on this board. We need them. We can't do this without you, Jim, and you, Bobby. And to me, it seems insane that you guys can't vote on the things that, I mean, it's the Shellfish Board. And I know we covered this before, and I know that there was a bill in the state legislature, and I can't remember the outcome, but there was a controversy around it that had to do with if this was an appointed board, then we'd get around it. And you, Bobby, and Libby came to one of our meetings to convince us to become an appointed board so that we could get around that. And at the time, we were tracking what was going on at the state. And I can't remember if that bill passed or not.
The state ethics commissioner told me that because we're elected, then we can't, if we were appointed, we could get a letter from the select board saying that we don't have a conflict, just like the Concom and the other boards do. But because we're elected, we can't get a waiver. So technically I would only have, if this didn't include scallops, because that's the only thing that I do commercially, I could vote on this. But because it's a full shellfish regs, and scallops are included in this, I have to recuse myself from the vote. That's the way it was explained to me, so.
And I'll get to you. Peter, I'm glad you brought that up. And wow, what a catch-22 now after our discussion about being appointed or elected and the passion from the entire board unanimously to remain elected. What bothers me the most out of this is if Mr. Franzuto was unable to attend tonight, we would not have been able to make this vote tonight. And so this process would have been held up at least another 3 weeks because our next meeting is not until the first Tuesday in May, which is 3 weeks from today. So I'm glad we have the quorum that we have tonight and we were able to continue this, but I guess we need to keep in the back of our mind whether
Mr. Chairman?
Really,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think what we need clarification from town council that I don't think we have to have a quorum to actually vote on it. We just need a quorum to open the meeting. So once we open the meeting, Jim and I could still recuse from the vote. As long as it's a majority, it could go through to the selectmen. But to open the meeting, you need the quorum, not necessarily to vote on this to send it to the board. That's my understanding, and we just need clarification from town council that that is the case.
Can
wait, what's the definition of a majority?
So.
The
again,
majority would be
I've
if
had
three of
this
you were
happen.
voting, two of the three.
I've had this happen before and, at the Concom. The way it works is as long as you have a quorum to hold the meeting, that if there are members that have to recuse or abstain for whatever reason, as long as a majority of the remaining members vote, that is allowed. So if Jim and Bob didn't sit on it and you were short from a physical quorum for the meeting, that would be one thing, because you can have the meeting, but once the meeting starts, the eligible members then make up the voting membership, even if you dip below that quorum number. I know it gets kind of confusing, but
No, well, you're actually
Yes,
making
yeah.
it clear now, just a minute, Dave, but does that apply to this board in particular being elected versus you're using the Concom,
I'd
which is
say-
appointed?
that's
So it applies to all boards.
that's a different issue. That voting rule applies to all boards, whether
Okay,
they're elected.
great.
or appointed.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, I just gotta say something. First of all, unless I was just physically unable, I would certainly attend every meeting, especially when it has this type of level of impact for our fishermen in our harbor, number one. So
Dave,
and
I
number,
wasn't
and
singling you out.
number two, I find it completely hypocritical of the state ethics people to bring this on a local board when they have a Massachusetts Fishery Council who's made up of 75% of fishermen who vote on catch limits and regulations for shellfish and fishing, and they don't have to recuse themselves, and they're involved in the discussion, and they're involved in the vote. I've sat at those meetings, and Bob, so have you. So this is totally hypocritical by the ethics people to say that some local board who's got a minor a small population to draw from for members who want to participate, that they can't vote. It's ridiculous. Their own fisheries council does. I'm sorry, that's my 2 cents, but it
Can I
just
say something too?
doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Dave.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Dave in some degree, just for the fact that the vote that we just took wasn't to approve the regulations. It was to forward it to the approval authority. So it's not like you guys are setting
Right.
direct policy,
Right.
one, and two is, I was always under the understanding, and we don't have to get into an ethics discussion now, that while Bob and Jim do have a direct financial interest in what they are, they're not creating rules or regulations that impact them as an individual. It's rules that will apply to all license holders. And I've always been under the understanding from state ethics law that that is an exemption in this case, where if you have that interest, as long as it applies evenly to all parties, that you can participate. But
Oh, that's,
I'm not a lawyer, so
Wait,
I'll throw my hands
so
back there.
can we back up? And so just to be able to compare to the complaint that was filed with the Ethics Commission against Bob over our, whether it was raising the limit or extending the season, was it really not an unethical decision for him to vote because we're just simply voting to advise the select board? Versus actually making the policy?
Since you're asking me, as Jeff Carlson, the person, I don't think he did anything improper, 100%.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, and it's not my decision at all, and it's up to the state ethics
Yeah.
and the attorney general's office. And I never reviewed the complaint, I didn't see it or anything, but I do think getting clarity and permanence would be something that I think we could seek from town council
yeah,
definitively. That way, at least any member that was on, that was a commercial fisherman in the future, whether it's Jim or Dan comes back on, or Bob stays
Mhm.
on, or
Mhm.
whoever comes on, we'll always have that in their back pocket, so if that happens again, they'll know right what to do. Or if someone complains, they can go, here's our letter from town council, even though it's 5 years old, law hasn't changed, so thank you very much. We're gonna go back to work.
So is this something that we could have as an agenda item, and maybe Mr. Franzuto could actually come up with some simple wording and possibly working with you to create a recommendation of advisement to the select board that the select board can then take to help us resolve this issue?
So I think before it's an agenda item, I think I'm more than happy to work with whoever on the board, whether it's Dave or Bob or Jim or whoever. To send that request. I mean, we can certainly put in a request for legal services to do, but I think until we get that information back. I think that would be the time to schedule it. So it just doesn't sit, and we could probably even if that's approved. Maybe even have counsel available for. Any questions that come up from whatever opinion is rendered.
All right,
Can I ask a question?
Peter.
So if it doesn't go our way, we're back to square one. Couldn't we, if we had to redo the regulations, or if there was a vote that included all fisheries, couldn't we make it 2 votes? Couldn't we make it all the things that Bobby and Jim could vote on? And do that, and then when it came to scallops, it'd be the rest of us, and do it that way.
That seem you can carve it out and vote on what those things separately.
Well, as long as we have a quorum, it's really not an issue, and well, or a majority of the quorum, but which brings the number down in our favor, basically, but I just feel, you know, a little kind of like personally offended. You know, in some way because of this, but not personally, but as a board offended, but anyhow. Mr. Pronk, something you wanted to add quickly?
I just wanted to say with what Bobby's saying, like, it's one of the reasons I didn't run to get back on the board, because I knew these comp regulations were coming, and I knew if I was on the board pushing for, it wouldn't look good. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't try to get back in, because not that SHAB wasn't important to me, but I figured I could make more noise not being on the SHAB board, and it would make, you know, somebody couldn't say, well, you know, just like they said to Bobby, so.
Thanks, Dan, and we appreciate your presence here in the public. Thank you. Okay. Move on. Anything else to discuss? We've taken the vote on the amendments to town shellfish regulations. Creation of an app for Nantucket weather reports. Report of daily shellfish catch totals, commercial and recreational, to state and local biologists. We kept this on here just to, I know you're working on it. Jeff, you told us you're actively working on it, and glad you're here tonight just to, you know, update us on that, and you know, if we can drop this from the agenda for our future meetings until you have made enough progress to, you know, and if the need to bring it back on. is
Yeah, I mean, I think
necessary.
we're kind of working on a scope with our IT folks and those guys, and I think we're happy to provide updates during our regular report.
Perfect,
And then we'll add it to the agenda when it's
okay,
something more definitive.
all right. And JC's in on this as well?
We'll have everybody in.
All right.
You'll be in, Tara will be in.
All right, great.
I might step out and have those guys deal with it.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna try to get on that 8 o'clock high line to get back to the boat yard tomorrow.
Take care, Dan, thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Being here. But
Thanks
All right.
for coming.
I got fiberglass work to do.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Good luck with Mr. Ellis. New business. Nantucket and Mattocket Harbor Action Plan update. Action Plan Committee update.
Yes, the committee met yesterday. We're going through the recommendations. Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're about 75 or 80% through that. We were given an update on our timeline, that we have a contract obligation that needs to be satisfied by the beginning of August. So that kind of forced us to rearrange our schedule a little bit and do more reviews at our each meeting. I think that a draft, I don't believe that a draft will be, and Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hoping that there'll be a draft by, I would say, mid-June. To get out for everybody's review. Then there's going to be a public meeting for the public, and it was discussed yesterday at great length. It's probably going to be mid to late July, so we can get it before the selectmen, and then after the public, any updates from the public and their comments would be included, and then get it in front of the selectmen before the contract obligation for coastal zone management. There can be an extension requested from CZM, and if necessary, I'm sure that we can go through the proper the proper process to do that. But we're hoping to meet that August deadline. So be assured that with Peter and Tara and my participation, and I would like to say strong participation, because we've had a lot of comments. I think what you're going to see finally is a decent plan with some responsibilities placed in the right locations. Jeff has been there to protect and ensure that natural resources are included when necessary. Tara, of course, for shellfish and water quality. Peter and I for basically everything. But I think you'll be happy with the final.
Thank you, Dave. Questions or comments on the harbor action plan? Taking of bay scallops in shellfish closure areas. This question was brought up basically about the line that's drawn from, what is it, Monomoy to First Point. If there would happen to be a certain strong wind direction that kept guys from going out, but let's say the Washington Street area was available as a safe haven for scalloping. What's the chances of scalloping inside the closed shellfish area?
Did they take this one? So we actually, in the draft of the new regulations, address this directly. And one of the primary concerns was related to, bycatch on the boat. So what was proposed in there is those areas, if someone's fishing in there, that's where they're fishing and no bycatch is allowed, and it's only for the adductor mussels, right? So you can't have any other shellfish on board, right? So if you find a little patch of clams or mussels or something, think you're gonna put them on the boat? No, that's not allowed. So once you're in there, you are limited specifically to that area and scallops. But then you would be able to go. So
Yeah,
Go
ahead.
We've fished in those areas before, but I think the bycatch thing is very important.
Yeah.
But we fished in those areas. It's not. What is the? I don't know. I'm struggling with remembering what is the reason for that line? Is it a pollution restriction?
yeah, it's the DMF's water quality restriction for, depends which area you're in, but most of them are for fecal coliform.
All right. So, but that would allow you to take bay scallops in there. if
Correct.
there was a set in there, or if there was a charge in there, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Bob,
Are we talking like from First Point over to the piers? Is that what we're talking?
yeah,
I
I
thought
believe-
that was due to moorings, and after the moorings were pulled, Jeff, that was opened. Wasn't that
Seems-
only a seasonal thing because of the moorings, or is it a year-round
That-
thing now?
That's the other restriction. That's the all.
That's the summer restriction.
Yeah, this one is more specific to like, it's the old line from, Brant Point over to the stairs towards the boat basin.
And it's
I
like
think
the Warren's Landing line from the
Yeah.
pipe to the creeks, those two
Yes.
areas, yeah.
But I think the way it reads and the way the new regulations is again, right, no bycatch and adductor muscles
Yeah.
only.
So you get clams, you gotta put them back, that's all. Simple. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
all right. Well, good. This is simply for clarification and, hopefully developers are listening and, take note of it. Any other questions or comments on the taking of bay scallops in the shellfish closure areas?
I think if it helps real quickly, once these are approved by the select board, we did a mailing a couple years ago of the entire set of regulations to all commercial license holders. We'll probably do that again, and we may highlight some of the significant changes in the cover sheet. That way we don't have to hear the age old, I didn't know,
Yeah.
I didn't know this has happened,
Yeah,
so. we can make
smart,
sure everyone
smart, a
knows.
lot of work on your part. At least it's not, 150 guys getting licenses, but still,
Even if it was, doesn't matter. It's
yeah.
Short money for us to
yeah,
make sure everyone knows the rules.
okay, great.
It's
Thank you for that.
especially important in that Warren's Landing area because a lot of family scallopers will go in there now if they can. And we need to let them know that they can't clam in there, that they can just take scallops. So we'll have to, like you said, Jeff, I don't think it'll be a difficult reach with the commercial guys. But all those people that come in the fall to go push raking, if they get a clam or two, they'll probably throw it right in their barrel or their bucket. So we just need to let them know they have to throw those back.
Yeah, the first year that closure was in place, I think we staffed that area like daily with somebody, whether it was. I know I did a couple shifts out there, Tara's, we just make sure everybody knew the rules, so we can always try to get that out there.
Good.
We can always put a sign up there too at the end of the road I think that would probably, because everyone accesses it from the same place there, so.
I think lots of point. As long as Scott White, lets us walk across. We'll be fine.
All right, any more discussion on this topic? Okay, the oyster lease consideration, specifically with Sean Fitzgibbon, is basically the same as what he, was pursuing last year. He does have some more information, but really some formalities, are more important, before we bring this up for discussion. He'd like to try to get some different space opened up in shallow water, where he can use that space year round. But basically, once he has met with Mr. Carlson and has his paperwork in order, we may see him at the next meeting. I told him he didn't have to come to this meeting, because we're really not prepared for him, and he's not completely prepared for us.
Should I make a quick suggestion? I
Please do.
think maybe, actually, we won't have another meeting in April, will we?
No,
So it's moved, because I was just gonna say is we're trying to set up our like old growers meeting for those guys at the end of this month. So the next meeting would be after that. I was gonna say that.
yeah,
Will probably make sense to have that conversation here after all those guys get together and kind of talk it out as a group. And they may have some other thoughts or ideas that refine that request a bit.
okay.
Or That group is not short of opinions, so. I'm sure
Right,
they'll-
right.
They'll have some thoughts.
Well, being April is, we have 5 Tuesdays this month. So our next meeting is May 6th, which is 3 weeks from today. Does anybody know when election day is?
I think it's the 20th.
May 20th. Okay, so we'll have, which is then our next meeting after that. So, we will have, Mr. Bossy with us for 1 or possibly 2 more meetings. I was just curious if we needed to formally say goodbye yet to Mr. Bossy, but we'll save that.
I don't think he'll be here on the 20th, only because he usually works though,
Right,
the election poll.
but he'll be here hopefully May 6th and we can give him a big thank you and appreciation and farewell, for his 6 years of service on the board. It almost brings tears to my eyes because he's been a wonderful contribution to this board. So think about that for our next meeting. Give a big thank you to Mr. Bossy. As he's not running for reelection. Quickly, if I may, Tara, on the recreational buttons. Being redesigned. Is there, I realize they're probably already made for the next season. I'm not sure if the board is aware of the button redesign. Maybe, y'all should just, take a look at it. It's kind of been, it looks a little less professional. The scallop doesn't quite look like a scallop anymore. I'm wondering if, I understand taking away Marine Department from the button, makes sense because they're not through the Marine Department anymore, but they are through Natural Resources Department. And Natural Resources Department is not mentioned on the button, I don't believe. But, if this is something the board wants to discuss, I would actually take, recommendation from Tara and Jeff about that. If you're okay with it, then I guess we'll be okay with it, but, I don't think any of us had, the opportunity to participate in the redesign of the recreational button. So,
Is it for,
Tara.
Right. I was just gonna say, I don't think whoever made the decision to change the button maybe took into consideration the tradition of the button and how it looks, and I definitely am a sucker for traditions, when it comes to stuff like that, and I think probably some other people are too. So yeah, I was just surprised by it because I saw it when my coworker purchased one and we had no idea about the change.
who redesigned it? Who did that?
We're working on figuring that out. None of us know.
Well, I'm here to tell you that that's just fundamentally wrong. And it should say, if Marine Department was a big issue, then it should say Natural Resources, which is more appropriate. And there's nothing wrong with that. Having over 40 of these things, happen to have one sitting right here. There's nothing wrong with that scallop. So whoever did this, we need to find out who did it. I'd love to speak with them.
Well, more importantly, if we can have some influence,
Most
over the
definitely.
next year's, design, I am totally on board with, how Tara puts it, how was that again?
Tradition.
Tradition, and,
Tradition.
I mean, I can't appreciate that more, so.
History.
And coming from you, Tara, that is just, that's really, hits the
Yeah.
heart, so.
Doesn't match the white buttons.
Mr. Chairman.
Sounds like,
So I got a question. So yeah, they changed the annual button, but then what about all the people who have lifetime ones that are the old one? Does that mean that they're not gonna be recognized because they're not or is it retroactive. Or
They'll be fine.
Who's driving this wagon?
It sounds like everyone should go out and get one of the new buttons this year because it's gonna be a one-off season. So, you know, if you got 40 years worth, Dave, you're gonna want one of the odd ones for that one year when they screwed up and somebody decided to reinvent the wheel. I don't, if it's
Somebody's-
not broke, don't fix it. Change the
Somebody
words,
has
call
lost
it a
their-
day.
Yeah,
Somebody has
Could be a
lost their
collectible,
mind
huh,
on
Bob?
this.
Oh, God. Somebody probably had AI design it.
Controversial issue of the
They
night.
probably designed it on a computer with AI.
All right, well, if at some point, we feel this
Mr.
needs to
Chairman.
be, Ms. Dave, go ahead.
I'm sorry. But take a look at this.
Yeah,
See, it says town in Nantucket. Take the word Marine Department off there and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the rest of that button.
yeah, yeah.
This is from, this
well,
one happens to be from 2007.
mhm.
I have that one.
I don't understand Jeff, who's driving this wagon? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a pain in the ass.
Here, you want the God honest truth, Dave? I found out about the change in the design and the button shortly after Tara found out. Because Joe at the hatchery came back and showed it to Tara, and she sent me a picture of it. And I won't repeat the language that was used in the test, but, we don't know. We weren't involved with the decision for it, that I can assure you, but, we will find out what happened for sure.
All right, so
All right.
when you find out, please consider us if you're going, if we all need to team up and request to, an advisement that we be involved in the redesign of the following year's button. Let us know if we should add this to our agenda, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally get it if it was some sort of like kids' school contest and you put it out there, like, I would get it.
Well,
but
it kind of
I
looks
don't-
like it was.
It does, but I
So-
don't think that was the case.
I mean, as Ron Shepherd said, some redesigning took place with the NSA scallop. And he sees it looking more like an asparagus than a scallop shell. And
asparagus was in a shell.
so the top of the flowering
Oh, yeah.
portion of the asparagus is what it looks more like than a scallop. And there's something to be said about authentic, especially at a board that trademarked authentic and to not have that little hook. To tell the top and the bottom or the left or the right side of the scallop. A lot of us are really familiar with that, especially left-handed scallop openers. So opening them upside down. But anyhow, any public comment?
Can I make
No,
one public comment?
After that, I gotta go get my defibrillator and see if I can get my heart back in rhythm.
Alright, so real quickly, this is me as a member of the public and nothing to do with the Natural Resources Department. I told the guys in the room before. I reported back to the town council study committee from our discussion last time. And they were happy to move Shad back to being elected. That was before our discussion tonight about appointing an elected, but they were more than happy to take the board's advice and then had it changed back in the draft charter to be an elected board, so.
Thank you.
Message was heard loud and clear.
Thank you, Jeff, and I thank the entire board for being so passionate about that discussion and sharing individually how you all feel about that. So that really meant a lot to me. I think it means a lot to the board. To back up a little bit before you defibrillate, Mr. Franzuto, pun intended, sorry to press your button. But anyhow, anything anybody has in mind for the next meeting that they'd like to see on the agenda? If not, get in touch with us, or if you think of something before May 6th, get in touch with us, Peter or I, at least 3 days before that. Is that Memorial Day weekend? We might need to be 4 days before that, if it is a holiday weekend.
No, May
No.
6th.
No, okay, that's the end of the month,
Right.
sorry.
5 days after May Day.
Once again, our next meeting is not until 3 weeks from today, May 6th. If there's nothing else to discuss tonight, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Brace to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
aye.
Mr. Franzuto,
Aye.
Mr. Sherwin.
Aye.
Mr. DeCosta,
Aye.
the chair votes aye to adjourn. It is 6:26 PM. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.